Hi folks, in this video we're going to change the cam belt and also the water pump, because we've got the kit to do both, on this 1.9 CDTI Mk5 Astra van. It does cover a few other models, I would imagine, with a 1.9 CDTI engine, but let's get going. Right, so we've got this Astra van here. We don't know when the belt was last changed, so it's very prudent to do it. So what we're going to do, first of all, is get the car up on the jacks. There's a few things we need to do beforehand. We've got a kit here. This is what we've actually gone for. With this one, you get the actual belt, and you get a water pump as well as the idler wheel as well. So just to show you what's involved in the kit, there's the brand new water pump. Again, it's only 2 bolts that fix that. Looking out there, we've got a couple of bolts there, and obviously the idler wheel there by the looks of it. We've also got a brand new tensioner unit as well that comes with this, and obviously the cam belt as well. One thing to note with the cam belt is that it has got directional arrows on it, and there's also 2 marks on it, 2 lines, as you can see there, and they're quite important when it comes to lining up things, which we'll show you a little bit later on. And one thing to note with our van, for example, is that this one is actually missing the under tray, the engine cover tray. And basically what you have to do is try and do some screws underneath. You have to jack the car up, basically. You have to take the 2 front wheels off, because some of the fixings are on the sides in the wheel arches there, and also in the other side as well. So if you've got an under tray, you're going to have to take both wheels up, jack the car up, take the bolts out of this side, take the bolts out of that side, and also the bolts are retaining the undercover underneath, and the whole undercover will drop down. We don't need to do that, so all we're going to do is jack up the driver's side, because we need to take the driver's side wheel off so that we can gain access to the lower pulley. So first of all, I'm going to jack the car up and get the wheel off. Right, okay, there we go. We've got the car nicely supported now on the old axle stand, and it's also a very good time to just have a check while you got the wheel off, just to see whether the brakes are okay as well. Now, as you can see, this has had recent new pads in it, so I'm quite happy with that, and also that the disc is in pretty good condition. So this is the reason we had to remove this ending shield if it was there, but our one's not here. You'd have to undo a couple of screws there, one there and one down there. I think these are clips. You've got 1 screw up here and basically 2 rivets or something to pull out. So that's something you may have to do. We haven't had to do it in this case because it's off, but that's the pulley we needed to gain access to for a bit later on. Right, the first thing we've got to do is to get this airbox out of the way, because we've got to get to this side of the engine obviously, and the airbox is right in our way. And if you had the Z19DT model, you may have to remove the front scuttle panel here. On this model, the CDTI, we don't need to do that, so that's something you may have to come up against if you're going to do one, if you've got that model. So first things first is to take off the airbox, and that'll give us access to the what we call the V-belt, which runs the alternator and the tensioner mechanism, because the cam belt, which we need to get to, lives behind that. So let's get on with that now. Right, this first one is a T30 Torx bit, so let's undo that. That holds the rubber mounting, as you can see there. You've then got these 2 hoses to get out of the way. You've got a Jubilee clip there, and I think you just pull that one out of the bottom there. So let's get them undone. There's a 7mm Jubilee clip there. Also remove the electrical connector there as well. Just pull that little yellow tab up, and that should then allow us to remove that clip. Easier said than done. Move that out of the way, and hopefully we should be able to wiggle this enough just to get that off. First of all, there we go. The bottom one should hopefully just wiggle out. Might give us a bit of room if we take this clip off and all. Want to make life a struggle, eh? So now I should be able to get this right out of the way. There we go. See, makes life a bit easier. and I'm all for that. That clips off now, so hopefully you might as well pull that one out of the way as well by the looks of it. There, look, there. Because that sits in a little thing down there, which you need full access to get that out like that. As you can see, that was it. This little mount there sits in a little U bracket down there, as you can see just there, look. So that gives us now access to this lot, as we have to remove this bracket here and also these 3 bolts. Our timing chest lives under there, so I'm just going to remove this upper cover as well. That's a couple of bolts there, so I'm going to take that off because we need to take this plastic cover off as well. Okay, what we need to do now is to detension this V-belt which runs the alternator, as you can see there. You've got a 15mm nut down here, that's the adjuster down there. I don't know if you can actually see me get on it or not. But what you've got to do is to detension this, and it pulls in clockwise, but you ain't going to get enough leverage. So what I've actually done is I've just flattened off the end of a bit of spanner there so I can get my tube, get it through the tube to give me more leverage. So you'll have to do that whatever way you want to do it basically. So that's what I'm going to do. So pull back, and then as you can see we can detension the belt and just pop it off, and we can now just go ahead and just lift the belt off of all the pulleys and pull it out. There we go. Belt's now that looks like a pretty decent belt, to be honest with you. So again, always inspect these things, make sure they're okay. If that would have needed changing, now would be the time to do it. Right, so here we are under the car now. We've now got a Torx T50 bit, and I'm going to put a couple of extensions on here and undo these 4 bolts. Crankshaft started to turn, so I'm just going to try a different technique now, just to shock it like that to get them undone. It might be easier if you had an impact wrench, but obviously I've got one, but it's not here. So I'm just using the old jarring the bolts technique. Now again, I think if you've got the other type of engine, you need to turn the crankshaft anyway. You see that? There we go, see, just a little jolt means you can undo it. Keep pressuring that way. You're acting as an impact driver basically, but you really want to get the multiple socket lengths of adapters on there so you can do it out here. There you go, all 4 are undone now. Just a few simple little tricks to hopefully make your life a bit easier. Now your pulley could be a bit tight like mine. Really you want a copper mallet, something like that, but mine's elsewhere at the moment, so I can't actually use mine. Could squirt a bit of lubricant around this joint here, because that's what is sticking on, the rust on there, but with a little bit of leverage you'll get it off. There we go, and off it comes like that. No worries about that. There's a little pin on there, as you can probably see there, and that locates in that little hole there, so that's how you mark that back up. And as you can see, we've got access to our pulley now. We haven't got to remove anything that up there or nothing like that, so when we detension this belt we'll be able to lift it off. Right, so here's the engine mount. We've got 6 bolts there, 4, 5, 6 as you can see. Now before we actually remove that, we've got to jack the engine up and just support the weight of it, so let's do that. Right, so all we're going to do here is to whack an axle down under the engine. Just going to support the weight of it first. Alright, again, don't lift up too heavy here because that's a cast sump you've got there and you don't want to go through that. I'm just lifting it up enough to get the wood in and then let it down onto the wood. There we go. So I'm not sitting on the trolley jack at all now, and the engine's supported virtually level on this wood. We're not tipping it up at all, so it's just sitting on that wood now. So we can now undo the engine mounting bolts from above. Right, we can now safely remove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 E14. These are the E14 fittings, so let's go ahead and do them now. Right, now is the time to remove this top cover here. We've got these four these four T40 Torx bits and two 13mm. So let's get them undone. Right, okay, just move that out of the way. And as you can see now, we've now got access to the top of our timing belts, and we can see our timing marks as well. Right, okay, we've got to remove this bracket now, and there's two big bolts there. There's one more down there that I can see, and I think there's one behind this pulley wheel here. So I'm going to undo that now. So just a little gentle wiggle side to side and it should come off. That's for the V-belt. Always check them bearings and all. Them bearings feel nice and smooth, so there's no reason why that shouldn't go back on. Right, I now undo the remaining bolts for this bracket. Right, as you can probably see, one there and one there. Right, this one's a 12, the one at the bottom, and that one's a 13. So there's two different sizes down here. There we go. I'm going to take these two out first. That's a longer bolt out of that one, and a shorter bolt out of that one, as you can see there. Now it looks to me now, once I take them top bolts out, which I've undone, I'm still not going to be able to lift this casing off and this bracket, because it looks like this jockey wheel doesn't clear the casing there. So I'm going to have to take the tensioner mechanism off from above as well. So that's what we're going to have to do on this model of car. You can't actually take them fully out because of the bolt head there, so just leave them undone. Right, there is a third bolt under there, so I've just undone that, and let's get that out. And now undo that Torx bit so I can actually remove this right out of the way. As I say, this differs than the Z19DT model, where all you have to do is tension this up, but obviously this model is different, so you've probably got the same model as this, I would take it, and that means that you actually have to remove the adjustment mechanism for the B belt for you to be able to remove this cover. Right, okay, there we go, that all comes off in one lot, as you can see. And there's those two holes I was telling you about for what you rotate. When you actually rotate this bolt, that hole there needs to line up with that hole there, and that's what you're poking the screwdriver through to lock this in the tension position. And again, just check the bearings, make sure they're okay, because if this is damaged, you change this as well. So now we should just literally be able to undo these bolts now, and literally just pull this completely out of the way. And there you go. Make sure you remember where the other bolts come. As you can see, that's all the bolts there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the 5 bolts there. That one's a 12mm, that one ended up being a 13mm. So let's get this out of the way. Okay, there's our cam belt now. And this one is our water pump. This is where our water pump lives. This is the high pressure pump pulley. This is our camshaft timing mark. And you see someone's been in here before. There's our little white timing mark there, which has got to be lined up with that white mark there. Now if you've put the belts on correctly, and someone's actually got another white mark on there, I wonder why they put 2 on there. That's the one, because that's got a little notch in it, you see. Looks like someone's come in afterwards and put their own mark on there for some reason. Don't know anything about that. We'll see when we line things up anyway. So I'm going to turn the crankshaft over now, and I'm going to line up this one with the little indent in it, because that's the one I presume lines up with our pointer up there. Right, okay then, let's have a little recap where we are at the moment. It looks like we've come up against a little bit of an issue in the instance that the timing marks don't appear to fully line up. Now I've just done a little check online to find out if these things can actually run one tooth out, and apparently they can, and it doesn't hit the pistons with one tooth out, so what I've read online. Now just to recap what sort of engine we got in here, we got the 1.9 CDTI engine, and this is the 120 brake horsepower with a single cam here, as opposed to the 1.9 Z19DT, which is the 150 brake horsepower version, and that is a different animal basically. So we're dealing with the 120 brake horsepower engine here with a single cam here. So let me just show you what I've come up against. So first of all, someone's obviously been in here before, because as I said to you before, we've got different marks all over this pulley. There's another one down there basically on the inside there. We've got a little bit of white Tipex which someone's put over there. That doesn't matter, this one doesn't need timing up. This is just the the pump at the end of the day, the pressure system. The two main pulleys which we need to worry about are the crank pulley down at the bottom there and the camshaft pulley. Now, although someone's put their own mark on there, that's not the correct mark. This mark here, which is the little white mark there, which has to line up with that little white pointer there, and you know this is the right mark because it's got a little indent in there as well, as opposed to this mark's just been painted on. So that mark there is lined up correctly with our timing mark there, if you can just see that. So that lines up with that, so we know the camshaft is lined up correctly. Now, people are renowned for putting their own marks on. Now, as you can probably see down there, someone's actually put their own mark on there as well. You can see there, look. So that's probably been done afterwards. That's not a timing mark, by the way. That's someone's own personal mark on the crankshaft pulley, but that's not necessarily correct. When you come down here at the crankshaft, we're hoping to see this cutout here at the 9 o'clock position. Now, there is a notch down here, but apparently no one sort of knows why that little notch is on there. And this appears to be sort of 1 tooth out. That's not at the 9 o'clock position. And another sign of that as well is this little locating pin there, which I mentioned before, is slightly off of the 6 o'clock position, for example. And you may ask why they don't put this on there if that's where the mark should be. Well, Vauxhall want you to take it to a garage to do, basically, or use the correct tools and all that, the locking tools and all that. So there's no mark on there, obviously, so someone's obviously come in and just made their own marks on the pulley and put them on according to what they thought they'd done before. This looks to be 1 tooth out to me. So this is the new belt. Now, with the new belt, we have the marks on it. We've got a mark there, as you can probably see, which sits on a tooth, and if we go around the belt, you've got the other mark, which is there. The actual line appears in between the tooth. The one we're interested in initially is this mark that sits on the tooth, because that sits, as you can see there, that will sit in that little divot of that time mark there. So the one that sits on the tooth will go in there, and once we thread the bolt round, the belt round correctly, make sure you've got the belt on the right way. As I say, if you go around the belt here, look, as you can see here, so we know the belt's on the right way. So that mark on the top, that one there, will go there, and provided we feed the belt round correctly, we should find that bottom line, where is it, when we put this belt on, should line up with the 9 o'clock position down there. Now, as I say, we know where the marks are at the moment because someone's put them little marks on there. So if I put this on and this don't appear to line up with the 9 o'clock position, then we know that it's 1 tooth out. Right, as I say, so now I've got that reference mark for me to know exactly where it is. I do believe that that mark down on there is 1 tooth out. So all I'm going to do now anyway, now I've got that as a reference point, is to undo our tensioner. And this is a 12mm. There we go, let's just drop the tension off the belt. There we go. And now we can just slip the belt off. And let's remove this now. There we go. And now what we want to do is to remove the sprocket here, because we need to get to the water pump which sits below there, as you can probably see. And there's 2 fixings for that there. One there and one down here. So we need to undo the big camshaft bolt in the middle there by sort of locking this in position. Now you want to be careful here because there's the crankshaft sensor there. You don't want to be damaging that at all, so just be a bit careful when you do that. And I'm going to try and hold back in here. There we go. Making sure, now I've loosened it off. Just put your crankshaft back in it, or your camshaft back in its correct position, like I've done there. And now literally just should be able to undo that bolt and literally bring the camshaft sprocket off there. Now again, you can't put that on the wrong way because, as you can see, it is keyed anyway, so that can only go back on one way. And that now gives us access to our crankshaft sensor there, which we just want to undo with, I think it's a 10mm by the looks of it, and a 4mm Allen key. So there's a 10mm bolt. Shouldn't be that tight. Just undo that. and just ease that out of the way. We'll give that a clean before we put that back on anyway. So and now that means we can gain access to our water pump bolts there. There's only 2 of them, but first of all we've got to drain the water out. Right, okay, so we're under the car at the moment. I'm at the bottom of the radiator there, as you can probably see, and on this model we've got a screw what you can undo and hopefully drain the fluid out. Well, nothing's coming out of there at the moment, so let me just undo the bottle cap at the top, so bear with me. Oh, missed, there we go. So all I've done there, as I say, is loosen the cap above, and we'll just let that drain out. There we go, I nearly got soaked there. I've made all the floor wet, so that's going to make it easier for me for laying down. So we'll just let that drain out for the minute until it gets below the water pump. And, oh, that's it, I think that's it. Right, nearly there. I think it's about 4 litres in there, but that fluid looks like it definitely needed changing anyway, so that's a bonus for us doing that. And the water pump looks like it's, hold on, T40? Yeah, T40, there we go. So, get me a little ratchet. And now, and just undo these 2 bolts here, which is extremely tight. Oh, hello. Don't like that. I don't like that at all. Oh, don't say that. Oh, they're too tight. Oh, look at that, it's ruined my blinking Torx bit, look. Oh, bear with me, I've got to work on plan B somehow. Right, again, things you come up against. I've got to get these out anyway, so I've got a little cold chisel there. I'm just going to try and shock these threads and see if I can just disturb it on the outside. So I've got a bigger hammer here. Right, got that one. As you can see, these are just things that you could come up against. You've got to get them out. And these are locked in with thread lock as well, but as you can see, the head's suffered some damage. Let's try this one again. No, we're going to have to give that one a bit more shocking. Try from a different angle on this one now. Right, I think I got it. Now again, I could have left this out, but no, has that got it? No, that's not got it. But I thought I'd show you this because this could be something that you come up against. There we go. There we go. See, I've had to muller that blinking bolt though to get it out. Look. So we're gonna need to put 2 more new bolts in there. But that's the sort of thing that you could come up against, and if you don't hit that correctly, look at the state of that bolt. Look, we've had to hit. There's no way that was coming out. So now, hopefully, gentle praise outwards, and out comes our water pump. There we go. Which again is getting replaced for a brand new one. Someone's definitely been in there, as you can see. Look, they put gasket seal around there as well. Look, just as a double precaution. Right, okay, let's clean everything up and then we'll start putting things back together. Okay then, so I've actually found 2 new bolts and I've cleaned the threads up for them. As you can see, they fit perfectly, although they're not the Torx bits now, they're just standard 13mm bolts. So I'm going to take off this jockey wheel down here now, and that's a 22mm bolt, so let's just undo that. As we've got a brand new one of these to go on as well, so let's get that undone. Okay, there we go, that's the old jockey wheel there. Feels okay, but as we've got a brand new one in the kit, we're going to put one on. although there appears to be some leakage down there, as you can see, so it may have just started to be on its way out. So just making sure that it's like for like when we put it back in. Make sure that the new one does go in there. Right, so I'm doing this bolt up to 15 Newton meters. There we go, so that's that. That's the jockey wheel installed. Time to fit the water pump. And again, we've got a brand new O-ring that sits in the groove there. So make sure that is located correctly. And you could run a bit of grease around that as well, just to ensure that we've got a good seal. Some people can, the other person put extra silicone down here. You shouldn't technically need it, but we'll put some grease around there. Again, it's up to you whether or not you actually put grease on this, or whether you decide to put some extra silicone around it. It's entirely up to you. This is a waterproof grease. It just makes things a little easier on the rubber O-ring when we come to install it. Again, make sure you put this water pump in with that thread facing upwards. Very easy to put it in upside down, because that is your fixing for your camshaft sensor there, as you can see. So once I've pulled it back in, which I have done now, it's pulled in nicely now, I'm going to put some thread lock on these again, just to make sure that these bolts are locked in position when they're in. I mean, ideally you'd put the same bolts back in, you'd obviously buy the original bolts that go in here, but I haven't got the original bolts and we need the job done at the end of the day, so we're putting these bolts in, which I've made, or cut down rather, from another pair of bolts. So these should be tightened to 25 Newton meters. They're only thin aluminium, so if you're like me, you'll worked on quite a few engines, you'll roughly know what 25 Newton meters would feel like. There we go, that's back in. We want to put our 2 bolts in for our camshaft sensor. That's got a little locating lug there into that little nodule there, as you can see, so it can only go into one position. And again, I'm going to be putting some thread lock on these as well. Technically speaking, this should be 9 Newton meters. It's not very tight at all. And there we go, that's the water pump fitted. Back on with the cam sprocket. This can only go on one way, as you know it's keyed, and nothing should have moved, so that literally can only go where it wants to go. And as you can see there, our timing mark is still lined up with our little groove there, so that's absolutely fine. So I'm just going to torque this up now. Right, okay, so I've done that up now to 120 Newton meters. What I managed to do, because I haven't got a locking tool, I managed to get a screwdriver just into there and hold there while I pulled and tightened up there. So that's how I've got over doing it that way. And as you can see, my timing mark lines are where they should be. So now we've got this lovely new tensioner mechanism there, and this here slides on a pin which is down there. I don't know whether you can actually see it down there. That's the pin that sits on. So okay, right, I've got the timing belt on. Remember what I said about the marks, about them lining up, and we had a little bit of a discrepancy with me thinking that this was one tooth out on the camshaft, on the crankshaft at the bottom there. I waited till I put the belt on, obviously, to find out whether that was or did seem correct, and it does seem like it's correct. I'll show you for why. As you know, there is our timing mark on our camshaft. There's our little pointer there, and the belt, remember what I said about the actual belt has got 2 lines on it. The line with the mark on the actual tooth itself goes on this pulley there, as you can see there, and it does lovely. So we threaded the belt all the way through the tension, around to the bottom pulley, around the tension, around the jockey wheel there on the water pump, and then onto the back pulley there. It doesn't matter about this one, that's the unimportant one. First of all, and if I show you the marks down there, which are obviously the marks that the people have put on themselves, or whoever has been in here before, they are still on the same marks there, as you can see. Now again, we can't go by these marks, that's what somebody else has put there. They're not the official marks, that's what someone else has done, obviously, when they've done maybe the belt at some other stage. If we go underneath now, There's the mark on the pulley, as you can see. Now this should be at 9 o'clock, and I thought it was a little bit too low. And if you look up there, you may just see, if I zoom in there, the timing belt mark is actually 1 tooth below where it needs to be. So what I'm going to do basically is just slip that crankshaft around to where the belt mark is, and that should put the timing in the correct position. So it just goes to show you can't go by what other people have done at the end of the day. That should be at 9 o'clock, that mark, and it's at sort of 25 past 8, if you could say that. So I'm going to turn that so the belt mark actually lines up with that bottom crank mark, and then I'll turn the engine over twice on the crankshaft just to make sure that no valves hit, and then hopefully we should be okay. Right, okay then, I've just shifted the bottom pulley crank around 1 notch, but nothing's happened up here. As you can see, everything still lines up there. If you look at their marks down there now, you'll see that their marks are actually 1 tooth out what they've put on there. I think they've put them on there incorrectly, so they're out now. But if we go down to the most critical mark, we know for a fact that this mark is in the right position on the belt, and the other mark is obviously stamped on the belt in the right position as well. And coming in here now, I don't know whether you can see or not, there's the pulley mark now. Looks like it's definitely at the 9 o'clock position now, and it lines up with the belt mark, which is, we know that's going to be correct as well. And that now, to me, is now timed up properly. So I'm just going to do the tensioner up now. And to make life a little bit easier, what I'm going to do is to put a bolt. This was the bolt that come with the idler wheel there, as you can see. That was one of the 2 bolts. And lucky enough, that fits in a hole just below the cam belt tensioner. So I'm going to have to do a bit of leverage in a minute. So I'll just screw that in to help me lever against. Got my 12mm socket. This is loose at the moment, that's hand tight, as I said to you before. So I'm going underneath the car. There we go. Until the marker lines up. And it's just done that now. I'll show you that in a minute, but first of all I need to nip this up. This is a bit awkward. And then basically you tighten this up for 25 Newton meters. That is well 25 Newton meters, and that should be the belt tensioned. If I just have a look down here, I'm hoping that I've tensioned it correctly, so I'm just going to have a look to see if it lines up with a hole. Bear with me. All the timing marks line up. The belt is now tensioned. I'm going to take that bolt out for a minute. So I'm going to cut off now my cable tie, rotate the engine twice and make sure everything comes back to where it should be, and then we should be okay. Right, so don't forget, once you've actually got the marks round, they've been round twice, and you've got your timing mark on your sprocket and your timing mark on your crankshaft lined up where they should be. Don't worry about the marks on the belts, then it doesn't matter about them then. So all you're looking for is you make sure that that sprocket lines up with your mark, and the timing mark on the pulley at the bottom is at the 9 o'clock position. Right, okay, that's that. So I'm just going to fill the cooling system up now. Started to do that already. I'm going to put the engine bracket on. I'm going to put the timing covers on, and I'll put you on time lapse for that, because as I say, it's just a repeat of what we just seen, the opposite of taking off, and also the crankshaft pulley as well at the bottom. Okay, thanks very much. See you in a minute. Right, we've virtually got everything back in together now. The thing that took the longest time for me was to get that V-belt back in the correct position. That tensioner mechanism has to go in the correct position because it rotates, and there's a little lug on the back of it, and you have to put it into a little hole at the back, otherwise you'll never get your adjustment on the belt. So something just to be aware of. I bolted it in and it wasn't in the little hole. The lug wasn't in the hole, it was in one of the slots there. So make sure you get that little lug on the back of the tensioner mechanism into the hole rather than one of the slots, otherwise you'll never get the correct tension. Just putting the air filter back on. So apart from that, I've filled the coolant system up now. Don't forget to put the drain plug back in. Mine was on the bottom of the radiator. I was going to start it up beforehand, but I thought I might as well, just for the sake of putting the air filter back on. It'll only develop a fault code if you've got the airflow sensor thing off, so I thought I might as well just put this back on. Right, so that's that back on. The airflow sensor goes back in there like that. Push the little clip down. Right, I think we're ready to start it up. We'll let Jimmy do it actually, and it's easier. Right, so don't forget, we think this was one tooth out. So, you got your key? Yeah. Go on in, off you go. Make sure it's in neutral. Don't move it because it's still got one wheel off.
Ready?
Yep.
Yeah, ready?
Go on. Happy days. Yeah. Check for leaks. You can't see. So there you go. All back to normal. Push it off. Right, so I'm just going to put the engine cover back on. We're going to warm it back up to get the air bubbles out and finish filling the coolant system. There'll obviously be air in the system. So there you go, just shows you this was one tooth out, and we only know that because that timing mark on the crankshaft should have been pointing towards the 9 o'clock, and it was a bit below that, and we confirmed that by the marks on the timing belt where we put the timing belt on initially. Those marks looked like they was one tooth out. So when we turned the engine over twice, we didn't get any pistons touching any valves or anything, and the lines all lined up again. Don't forget, once you do turn the engine over, it don't matter about them marks on the belts then. That's initially for putting the belt on. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this and got something out of it. This is how we've done it. It's probably not the ideal way, but we're not experts at the end of the day, and we haven't got all the tools, but we just may do with what we've got. Anyway, some of the problems we've come up against in this, you could come up against things like the bolts that are on the water pump, and it just shows you little tricks like that on how to get over them. Anyway, thanks very much. See you in the next video, and until then, bye for now. Just take the back bumper off, he's going to be respraying that. Well?
Fine, normal.
Yeah? Heater coming through?
Boiling, sweating.
Right, that's working then. Job done.